Hello and welcome to this video. Today we're going to talk about Fuji's least sexy lens. Fuji XF50mm f2 RWR. I mean, geez, that sounds like you buy a washing machine, not a lens, come on. But the name is not the reason why I say least sexy. It's because it has a bigger brother, the 56mm 1.2. That's extremely bright aperture, and it's one of the original Fuji lenses they put out for the X system, so it has a kind of magical status. And this bigger brother has taken up all the attention, and what you see very often on photography forums, the 50mm f2 gets slammed for having lack of character, and the 56mm f1.2 gets praised for its amazing character. Personally, I think the 50mm deserves a closer look, so that's what we're gonna do today. I'll show you some image samples and then you can make up your own mind. So let's head on to the review and let's talk about the focal length first. I think focal length is really important because it really determines how you use a lens, what kind of situation it's useful for and whatnot. And with 50mm I feel it's a kind of a mixed bag because on the full frame equivalent field of view it's like 75mm, and that places it kind of in an awkward position because it's too narrow to be a walk-around lens and it's too wide to be a proper tele lens, so it's kind of in between. Personally, I found it hard to make sense of the focal length at first, but when I got used to it, I found I had some really satisfying results. What I think this focal length is really good at is portraits. With the f2 aperture you get enough background separation, so you've got plenty of background separation for your portraits. And I also like to use it for street photography, when you want to catch a scene across the street or you don't want to get too close to your subject for fear of disturbing them. I sometimes also use it for events to get some really close intimate shots with kind of like details without trying to get too close to your subject. That works really well, but you need some space to walk around. If you don't have the space to walk around, if it's for example quite crowded or it's in a very small space, you can't really use this lens, then I would recommend something a little bit wider. Alright, that's the focal length done. Let's talk about image quality. Now, I'll split up image quality in three concepts. You've got details, you've got contrast and color, and you've got highlight roll-off. Let's talk about details first. Now take a look at this photo that I shot. It's a portrait of my sister. It's shot at ISO 400. I have to admit the light was really good in that situation. But look at how much detail this lens captured. Mind you, it's straight from f2, so that means it's not even at its sharpest. Lenses generally are sharper in between f5.6 and f8. So that's something to consider, but you can crop in quite a lot before you start noticing loss of detail there. So top marks for this lens. Realistically speaking, this lens is more detailed than you'll ever need out of a lens. So detail wise, it has you covered. Let's continue on to color and contrast. I think these two are related because a lens that has more contrast also renders more color. Pull up any photo in Lightroom, enhance the contrast, and you'll find that the saturation at the same time increases as well. This is why I take the two together. I have to say I'm really impressed with the color and contrast of this lens. If I take my photo straight out of camera, even in RAW, the color and the contrast are really punchy. I've got plenty of contrast, I've got really nice vibrant colors, and that really helps with the editing process. What you want is to have vibrant colors and good skin tones at the same time, and having vibrant colors straight out of camera really helps, because if you start pushing colors in post-production, what often happens is that you also kind of start pushing skin tones and people start to look orange instead of, I don't know, a healthy normal complexion. So that's something you don't want, and this lens with its good rendering of contrast and color really helps. Alright, let's move on to highlight roll-off. This is an often overlooked part of photography, but it's really important because good quality cameras and good quality lenses give you a really smooth transition from the really bright areas of your photo to the darker areas of your photo. This is called highlight roll-off, and it gives you that nice, smooth and filmic look. Cheaper cameras and cheaper lenses give you very harsh roll-off, and images don't look as good. Let me pull up this photo that I took a while ago of a bouldering competition. You can see I shot it against pretty bright lights and it worked really well. In fact, the dust in the air combined with the quality of the lenses really helped to smoothen out the transition from the really bright light sources to the darker areas, and it helped separate the subject, the climber in this case, from the background, and it made it look really nice and epic and filmic. I pushed this concept even more to the extreme when I did street photography recently at sunset on a bridge. You can see the sun is straight opposite me, it shines straight into the camera. You've got some flaring, but that's something you're always gonna have if you shoot straight against the sun. What I really like in this photo is that you can see the transition from the blown out area of the sun to the part where the sky is nice and blue, this late evening blue. It's really smooth. It also helped, of course, that I underexposed the photo, so I protected most of my highlights, but still, I think this is a great performance and it's something that I was really pleased with. So overall, I would say if you think this lens lacks character, then it's your photography that lacks character, not this lens. So don't blame the lens. I think this is a great lens. Some other aspects of this lens that are really important are the weather resistance. I love the fact that this is weather resistant. Let me show you some photos I took recently during a rush hour deluge. I have to say I was completely soaked in a few minutes, but the lens kept working perfectly. I had no problems there, even though it was really wet. And because the lens comes with a fairly deep lens hood, I didn't even have to clean front elements, so that was something I really appreciated, and that helped me shoot in these circumstances. Is it all good though? No. Unfortunately, there's one thing I think is really not that good. This lens's manual focus is fly-by-wire. Fly-by-wire isn't so good, but on this lens I find it's particularly unresponsive. And that sucks because sometimes I use manual focus, but I don't get to the proper focusing plane fast enough because this lens is so unresponsive and I miss shots more often. And that brings us to the last part of this review, autofocus. This is a modern Fuji lens and as such it has amazing autofocus. In fact, I would say probably this lens is about as good as it gets on the Fuji X system. I have to say, if you go and shoot in lower light situations, it's not as good, it's not as fast or reliable, but that's also because I shoot on an older camera, the Fuji X-T2. If you buy an X-T3 or an X-T4 even, it will be a little bit better, and I think it will keep up a little bit better in low light especially. So to round it up, this is a really good lens. If you're willing to live without the f1.2 maximum aperture of its bigger brother, the 56mm, this is a great lens to live with. It offers some things that are really nice, such as really snappy autofocus. It offers great image quality. It's a lot cheaper than the 56mm. In fact, I picked this up for 275 euros second hand. And the weather sealing gives you, the ability to shoot in pretty adverse conditions and to use it on adventure photography as well. And that's something I'm gonna use it for this year as well. Alright, that's it for today. If you're still watching, I assume you like this video, so please hit that like button. It really helps me out. If you super like this video, please consider subscribing. I'll be making more videos, mostly about photography, adventure photography and adventure videography, but I'll also throw in an occasional street photography and lens review thing. So stay tuned for more content this year. In the meantime, have a great day. Case out.